Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Pastor. Today's question comes from Rebecca Davis, and it's a two-part question. The question is, what was the role or motivation of Judas to betray Jesus in the Gospels? A timely question as we approach Holy Week. And also, what is the Gospel according to Judas? Well, we're going to start here, and we're going to look at the four canonical Gospels, the official Gospels, beginning with St. Mark. St. Mark, in that Gospel, Judas' motivation is true to the form of the Gospel in that it is ambiguous. Mark paints a picture of Judas, one that says that Judas might be motivated to betray Jesus for one of two reasons, or maybe both. The first reason would be because Judas is upset, because prior to entering Jerusalem, when all of the disciples thought that they had hitched their wagons to a rising star to Jesus and that they would be successes, Jesus tells them in plain terms that he is going to Jerusalem not to be a success, a worldly success, but rather to be crucified. So, crestfallen Judas may have betrayed Jesus in Mark's Gospel out of a sense of spite. But then there's another more positive reason that results with an unintended consequence. And that is in Mark. Mark also paints a picture of Judas as being someone who may have just been trying to game the system, understanding that Jesus was going to get himself in trouble. If he could just get him arrested and put into protective custody for the Passover, maybe he would survive with his life. So, which is it? Is it betrayal out of a sense of spite, or an unintended consequence from a misguided action, or both? We don't know. That's the beauty of Mark. St. Matthew's Gospel, on the other hand, credits greed as being the motivator for the betrayal of Jesus. Those 30 pieces of silver are a great temptation for Judas. Judas succumbs to temptation, but when he realizes the deadly consequences, he goes and tries to return the 30 pieces and can't, and it ends in tragedy the whole way around. In St. Luke's Gospel, the betrayal of Jesus is tied actually all the way back to the beginning of the Gospel to the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. After Jesus is tempted for 40 days and 40 nights and perseveres in his temptation at the hands of Satan, the Gospel according to St. Luke tells us that Satan disappeared, waiting for a more opportune time. And then, during Holy Week, Satan literally possesses Judas, and that serves as the motivation for the betrayal of Jesus. St. John's Gospel. Remember, this is a gospel that stands alone. It doesn't look or feel like the other gospels. In John's Gospel, the Passion of the Christ is almost an event that is choreographed by Jesus. And this plays out in the betrayal. At the Last Supper, Jesus announces to his disciples that he will be betrayed, and the one who will betray him is sitting here with them around the table. And, of course, the disciples want to know, well, Master, Rabbi, who is it? And Jesus said, the one to whom I give the bread will be the one who betrays me. And Jesus takes a bit of bread, places it in a bowl, hands it to Judas, and at that point, Satan enters Judas, and he becomes the mechanism by which Jesus is betrayed. True to form in John's Gospel, not only that act being choreographed, but also Judas had been set up a little bit, because earlier in the Gospel we learned that he's a thief. He's been stealing from the common purse. So there you have another kind of mixed motivation. So, in Mark's Gospel, the motivation for Judas to betray Jesus is ambiguous. Is it spite, or a tragic, misplaced attempt to help Jesus, or both? Matthew's Gospel, it's greed. Luke's Gospel, it's possession. And John's Gospel, it's kind of a prophetic, choreographed possession. Now, on to the second part of your question about the Gospel of Judas. The Gospel of Judas was found, I think, around 60 years ago. It's a fragment. It is a non-canonical, that is, non-official gospel, and it was produced by a heretical sect known as the Gnostics. A lot written out there by the Gnostics. If you want to learn more, Elaine Pagels is probably the best scholar in the United States at this time. She's at Princeton. Like I said, it's a 1700-year-old text originally written in Greek. We have a copy of it that is a translation to Coptic, an Egyptian, northern Egyptian language. And far from portraying Judas as a bumbling and conflicted person, or as one moved by greed, or a thief, or one possessed, this gospel portrays Judas as Jesus' favorite disciple and the only one of the 12 who truly understands Jesus' words, his actions, his wisdom, and his teachings. In this gospel, Judas is secretly asked by Jesus to betray him so that Jesus might be freed from his physical body, and Jesus would rather be betrayed by a friend than by an enemy. So I've included a link to a PDF copy of the text of the Gospel of Judas in the description below this video, if you'd like to peruse that and read that at your convenience. But in the meantime, if you have any more questions, like I said, text me, call me, email me. Give me a question, and when I get around to it, I'll answer it. Thank you.